Hey folks, Seth here. As we watch cities burn, statues being torn down, and calls to defund the police, if you haven't already, it may be time to think about personal protection. Guns Etc. has 10,200 square feet of guns, ammo, safes, and a staff that will work with you to find the best firearm for your situation. So stop by their huge store in Mesa or click on gunsetc.com and have access to over $400 million in firearms and accessories. And if you like my monologues, please subscribe to 960 The Patriots YouTube channel. Welcome back. Happy August 17th, 2020. There's a lot going on this week, and today, of course, commences the Democratic Party's National Convention. It will be widely watched, and it'll carry with it and promote certain cultural and social themes. I, for one, think the party is one big, bad joke. Except not funny so much as dangerous. Let me start by the way the Democratic Party sees people. It doesn't see them, us, as individuals, which has wide-ranging implications for us as a people, for all people, and us as a nation. None of them good. I was doing some research over the weekend, particularly finishing Amity Shlaes's book on the Great Society. It drove me to some research on Ronald Reagan from the 1960s, what he was doing and saying in California, when the federal apparatuses of government were moving us further and further into a welfare state. Then I turned on CBS for a moment to see what 60 Minutes was covering. Their first story, all the benefits of psilocybin, complete with Anderson Cooper using it. If you don't know what psilocybin is, you may recall something you may have heard of during high school or college years known as shrooms or psychedelic mushrooms. Psilocybin is an intoxicant, what the DEA and Congress have labeled an illegal drug on par with heroin. But there's CBS touting its benefits for everything as a cure to quit smoking to a cure for depression. I know something about this drug as I work in my spare time to prevent our youth from initiating drug use. And I know, too, that the ethic of our age, the scientific and political mantra, even of late, is to follow the science. Listen to the scientists. There is one scientist who probably knows more about this sort of thing than anyone else, maybe in the world. Her name is Nora Volkow. She's a medical doctor who heads the National Institute on Drug Abuse, a branch of the National Institutes on Health. She may be the most well-published expert on drugs in the brain, having published more than 780 peer-reviewed articles, written more than 100 book chapters, and co-edited the Neuroscience for the 21st Century Encyclopedia, while editing 4 books on neuroimaging for mental and addictive disorders. Of psilocybin, she has written, quote, "It can distort the way a user perceives time, motion, colors, sound, and self. These drugs can disrupt a person's ability to think and communicate rationally or even to recognize reality, sometimes resulting in bizarre or dangerous behavior," close quote. She goes on to write, "These drugs, quote, are associated with psychotic-like episodes that can occur long after a person has taken the drug, and dissociative drugs can cause respiratory depression, heart rate abnormalities, and withdrawal syndromes," close quote. None of this made it into the 60 Minutes feature touting this, nor did the words illegal or dangerous. But as I said, I noticed Cooper said it helped quit smoking. And there it was, again, this fascination or ethic of the day that thinks lungs are more important than brains, and a culture of true danger. But this is a slight digression, because I then saw a commercial break advertising coverage of the Democratic Convention, and I noticed something really odd. The ad featured a logo of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, as the official picture for CBS or others for the campaign coverage. And Kamala Harris was on the left side of the screen, left of the logo, Joe Biden on the right. How odd. That's not usually how it's done. That's not usually how it's ever done. Go to Google or anywhere and look up campaign pins or logos of any presidential and vice presidential team, and you'll see the candidate for president on the left, the first place slot, and where the eye naturally goes first. The vice presidential candidate is usually on the right. Here it was reversed. I especially noticed this because Maureen Dowd of the New York Times yesterday criticized a lot of us, some by name, who said this is exactly what was happening with Kamala. she was going to outshine Joe Biden on the ticket, in the imagery, in the campaign. She criticized us for saying that she would darken his son, that she would be primus inter pares, if you will. Dowd said that criticism, or that speculation by we conservatives, as we were noticing her coverage in the press, was an anti-feminist critique from the right. She actually wrote it as, quote, a trope about castrating women, close quote. For this, Dowd gets paid. I guess in our modern age you can castrate women now. But no matter, CBS was proving us right, and the Dowds in the New York Times wrong. But it led me to think about the Harris pick in the first place, and that old joke we're all supposed to just get that I spent a monologue on last week in another context. It was in March of this year that Joe Biden promised and committed to picking a female candidate for his vice president, and everyone oohed and awed and thought and said, how progressive. Is this how women want to be chosen for jobs and candidacies? Simply because they, well, have a biology that doesn't lend itself for castration? Was any child going to stand up and say, wait, the emperor has no clothes? I thought we wanted the best person for the job, not the immediate decategorization and illegitimacy of 50% of the prospective pool of qualified people. I mean, was Joe Biden, in effect, saying Kamala Harris or any woman was a better choice to lead this country than every other man in the world, from Bernie Sanders to Pete Buttigieg to Cory Booker? Any woman, by dint of simply being a woman, not even knowing which woman it would be? Is that what women's liberation has led to? Your biology being more important than your brain? Now, I just got done with this series on the ERA, and I just got done watching a bunch of 1970s shows on women's liberation and the movement, from Dick Cavett to Firing Line to others, that just that was the hit on people like Hugh Hefner, treating women like objects for their biology rather than for their brains. Maybe we have advanced so far that Jeffrey Lebowski actually had it right. Now maybe we just treat objects like women. But it was not that joke we were all supposed to get. It was the joke that selecting someone exclusively for their biology was the progressive thing to do. And how advanced that was. Never mind, women had run for vice president before. Never mind that women have run for president before. Never mind that Maureen Dowd, nor for that matter Peggy Noonan, ever defended Sarah Palin for the barbs she took for being on a major ticket and seemingly, to the narrative of the elites, unqualified for the job. It was never said that the left castrated her. In passing, I should say that Palin was not chosen by McCain because she was a woman. She was chosen because she was a conservative woman, or maybe just because she was a conservative. But the joke we were all supposed to go along with, the new clothes of the emperor we were all supposed to marvel at, was Joe Biden promising a pick based on gender, and that any such pick would be eo ipso, of course qualified, and more than. Never mind choices based on gender, much less race or religion, were outlawed by the Civil Rights Act of 1964. That ethic is long gone. Funny thing about this, all of it, as I say, given the women's liberation movement and all it supposedly taught us and stood for, though no child shouted the emperor had no clothes here, it was the lack of clothes on women, the women's liberation movement from Hugh Hefner forward, found so deserving of targeting, treating women for their biology and bodies and making a thing of it, indeed. Democrats can do that now, I guess, as they can make any kinds of categorizations they want and get away with them. And we'll know in due time whether Harris is qualified or even that smart. I was watching Kamala Harris with Stephen Colbert. This was before Joe Biden announced her as a pick. Colbert asked her how she would overcome denouncing Joe Biden's position on busing, the attack she was most famous for in the primary debates, the attack where everyone thought she called Joe Biden a racist. I was wondering how that would all play out, and Stephen Colbert asked her, as I say, before she was picked, how she would handle that. Harris had a ready answer. We'll play it in a bit, but she cackled her way through the answer, laughing, saying 8 times 8. It was a debate, as if that were an answer. Why didn't she just sing something like, I don't know, Janet Jackson's song Nasty, or I love to laugh from Mary Poppins. It would have made as much sense as an answer of it being just a debate. Unless, of course, Harris was saying what happens in a debate doesn't matter. Debates are not serious. What she says cannot be taken or should not be taken seriously. Is that what she was telling us? Note, too, what she was laughing at. Laughing away, cackling away, her charges against Joe Biden on the issue of racism, on charges of racism. They don't take it seriously at all because they are not serious about it all. It's a joke to them, and it's a joke on us. As John D. MacDonald put it in the short story The End of Tiger, there is a kind of laughter of which there is too much in the world. But what Harris and the Democratic Party want us to believe is that anything will do for a win, for power, even on the most sacred or tender of issues. Of course, that is the only conclusion one can draw from Harris's cackle of an answer. It was a debate, as if to say it was a burlesque or a joke. Just get it, please, and move on. But that's what the Democratic Party has been saying to us for a long time. It's all a joke. Get it and move on. This regarding what most of us take as serious. Matters of life, matters of humanity, matters of equality, matters of race, matters of livelihood. As I was going through the history of the parties recently, I found another gem of a speech from Ronald Reagan, this one from 1968. It turned out it was the day after Martin Luther King Jr. was shot. Many of us play and esteem what Robert Kennedy said the night King was shot. I don't think I have ever heard or seen what the governor of California, Ronald Reagan, said until this weekend when I was doing some research and I found it. It was in an address the day after the shooting to, of all groups, the National Women's Press Club. Here is what Reagan said to them, quote, "Last night, the cowardly hand of an assassin laid the problem of America on America's doorstep. Whatever your opinion of Martin Luther King, whether you approved or disapproved of his actions, our nation died a little last night also. It started dying, and his murder began with our first acceptance of compromise with the law. That compromise ranges from our indifference when some would apply the law unequally to some of our fellow citizens, to those who today, black or white, say it is up to us as individuals to decide which laws will be obeyed and which laws broken. It includes those in government, unless and until they have the courage to say the law will be enforced and will be enforced equally and applied to all men on an equal basis. Either we reaffirm our faith in man's ability to meet his fellow man in a spirit of goodwill, with a determination to eliminate their differences peacefully, or we turn savage. We who are white must accept the responsibility for rendering the night rider and his more gentlemanly ally, the friendly neighborhood bigot. We must accept that responsibility. And those good, responsible people who make up the vast majority of the black community equally must repudiate the bigots in their midst. Any other path leads only to the jungle where those who are outnumbered, will die. Just so. He then went on to speak on the importance of equality. As I say, I'll play the audio a little later. Earlier that year, Reagan, gave a speech saying, "We know that there are those today who will still spread the poison of bigotry, and we cannot ignore them any more than we should overlook those who are determined that no American will ever again have to tell his child he is denied some of the blessings of this land because he is in some way different." That was 1968. Reagan, like Republicans from the get-go, looked to the individual, not a group. Reagan, like Republicans from the get-go, opposed slavery. Democrats, on the other hand, did not. And while Reagan was talking like this in 1968, Lyndon Johnson was using the N-word in the Oval Office. When Republicans nominated Abraham Lincoln in 1860 to run for president, the Democratic Party split, and 7 state delegations actually walked out of and left the Democratic Party because it would not guarantee a slave code. Those states constituted the beginning of the Confederacy. Thank God for Lincoln and the Republican Party. And shame on the legacy of the Democratic Party, which, from then until just this moment, seemed and seems to still think It's A-OK to nullify federal laws and principles, create and carve out, indeed secede from the Union, and attack federal troops trying to enforce the law and protect innocent civilians. Thank God for a party that sees humans as humans and not their worth by dint of their biology or skin color. And until the Democratic Party stops playing with these dangerous toys and jokes, it's going to be ongoingly difficult for me to take it seriously. For you see, it is the humanitarian that cares about the human or the individual. It is the bigot or worse who sees someone's merits or demerits based on the group they were born into. Some may even call that a caste. And while Oprah Winfrey likes to speak of America as having a racial caste system these days and promotes a book saying just that, I suppose my thought is this. Well, part of America believes that. It's the party you belong to and promote. Lecture yourselves. We Republicans stand with John Marshall Harlan, who said there is no caste here. Our Constitution is colorblind and neither knows nor tolerates classes among citizens. In respect of civil rights, all citizens are equal before the law. We believed that in the 1860s. We believed that in the 1960s. We believe that now. Your party didn't, and it doesn't now. And it's not a joke we will laugh at. I'm Seth. We'll be right back.